Hello and welcome back. It's B-Mill Bacon here, and I wanted to just make a quick video talking, I guess, generally about my experiences playing Sonic and Shadow Generations, but also what I would describe as kind of a general inflection point in the series, because I don't know if y'all have noticed it the same as me, but over these last few years, it really feels like things have been changing for the better in the Sonic franchise in a way that I think that we as fans have been waiting for a very long time. And I think this has been built up over a few years now, over a number of releases or a handful of releases at this point. The first point on the graph that I'd like to point to is Sonic Mania, right? A return to the 2D franchise or 2D part of the franchise that we all kind of grew up with. We know and love. It brought a whole new generation into what 2D Sonic was all about. And really was just overall a fantastic game, generally speaking, right? I think we all probably agree that Sonic Mania was a true return to form, at least for the 2D era of the game. And then since then, we've had a couple interesting things happen. And I think the first one that I'd point to would be Sonic Frontiers. And I know I certainly have my personal criticisms of the game. By no means do I think it's an absolutely 100% perfect game by any means, but it was pretty darn good, and it was the first attempt to bring the series into an open world format. Some things about it worked, some things about it didn't work, but generally I think it was a pretty good experience. It plays pretty well, it looks good, and it was, compared to what we've had over the drought of many years of Sonic games, it was one of the better ones, right? And I think that started things on an upward trajectory in tandem, if you will, with the Sonic movies. Now, the Sonic movies is probably the biggest carryover here, where I think they've done an extremely good job at adapting the Sonic franchise onto the big screen. They are extremely fun. They have been received by audiences extremely well. They are fun for both adults and children. And again, not perfect, but certainly they have capitalized on what makes the franchise great. It's quirky, it's a little bit wacky, it is high speed, high octane action at a lot of moments. Thank God they made the changes to Sonic that they did before the movies came out, because he looks fantastic. They captured his personality, not to mention the personalities of a lot of the other characters. And with Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie being released just last weekend, I think it just kind of really made me realize, watching that movie and then also side by side with that, playing Sonic X Shadow Generations, it really felt to me like we are at a complete turning point for the franchise overall. And I don't want to say that, like, we're not at a peak or anything like that. It's not like, oh, we've hit peak Sonic now it's only downhill from here. No, I feel like we are now on an upward trajectory, and that, fingers crossed, things can only get better from here on in. If you missed it, the president of Sega came out recently and said something along the lines of he wanted to make Sega shiny again. And there has been some announcements made over the last year or so about them bringing back some classic Sega franchises. Probably one of the biggest ones that stood out to me was like Crazy Taxi. Well, who leads the charge for Sega franchises as a whole? Well, it's our boy in blue, Sonic the Hedgehog. I got to imagine they're looking at the success of the Sonic movies. They're seeing it absolutely crush in terms of just being, I think, widely nowadays regarded as maybe the most successful video game movie franchise. And I don't mean in terms of just pure amount of money made. I don't know exactly how it compares to the Mario movie, for example. But they have made just a killing off the movies, enough to at least release 3 different ones, and they just keep getting better and better and better. So they're going to be looking at that. And then they're going to be looking at the success of the video game properties. And we have seen Sonic Mania, Sonic Frontiers, and now Sonic X Shadow Generations, all of which have come out to pretty high praise and acclaim. Shadow Generations is a massive step forward for what I would call the modern Sonic generation. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you basically have 2 options with Sonic. You have the classic 2D, 16-bit pixel style that we grew up with on the Sega Genesis. And then you have pretty much everything from Sonic Adventure and onwards. And it kind of feels weird to say modern Sonic, because modern Sonic nowadays is something that was defined back in 1998 with the release of Sonic Adventure, but that's basically how it's categorized. And generally speaking, we haven't had a lot of consistent, amazing releases in the modern Sonic franchise. We've had Sonic Adventure 2, we've had Sonic Generations, Sonic Colors, maybe Sonic Frontiers, if you want to consider that one of the better ones, one of the great ones. But overall, generally speaking, it has been tough for them to move into a 3D space. And Shadow Generations just absolutely knocks it out of the park. It completely understands what makes the franchise great. It looks great. It plays great. It goes fast. It's addictive. It's good for the same reasons that like a Mario Kart game is good. It's fun to replay. The levels are well designed. It's flashy, it has challenge, it has clear goals for you as the player that you need to accomplish. It does all these things extremely well, and it just overall, I think it understands what its audience wants, and it caters to that in an extremely effective format. So that's generally been my experience with it. I think we are at a new inflection point, or a turning point, if you will, for the series, for the franchise as a whole. I think things can only really get better from here on out, to be honest with you. And I'm very excited for what the future has to bring. And that's thanks to all of us. Yes, obviously, Sega themselves would have had a big hand, developing the games and continuing to release it. There's other franchises I can think of that haven't fared as well. Mega Man, for example, there's a big drought out there. We certainly haven't ever had a shortage of Sonic games, but we have had a shortage of really good Sonic games. And the last few years, that is changing, and things have really been going for the better. And now we're sitting on top of the cinematic video game universe with our franchise. So I'm feeling pretty good. I hope that you're all feeling good for sticking by the franchise, or maybe you're new to the franchise and you are just getting into this. I would say now is the perfect time to start. So anyways, that's my thoughts. I really enjoyed Shadow Generations. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but in my heart, it's like a 10 out of 10. It's probably more like a 9 out of 10 or something like that, but in my heart, it's a 10 out of 10 game. I loved it, and I just think that, in combination with Sonic 3 coming out, it's been a really wicked year. It's been the year of Shadow, and I think a huge just W overall for Sonic fans. So anyway, thanks for watching.